And hello, everyone. First big piece of news, and I'm going to share the screen so that we can get into it. So here is, I just had an interview a couple hours ago. So let's play it and see what we get. All right, Bob, and it's a pleasure being with you this afternoon. It's a Thursday afternoon, and we're about to get going with the briefing in about an hour and a half. So I'm happy to be talking with you. You have been with the company for quite a while.
Yeah, I just looked it up. My very first investment, I bought stock over the counter in February of 2009.
Wow, that makes you truly one of the oldest ones. And of course, you were able to reprice your shares through the.
Not those shares, unfortunately. Those shares were done over the counter, so not directly with the company. And I didn't learn, about the company investments for a number of years.
Interesting.
And makes a lot more sense because the money goes to you instead of somebody else.
Right, and we've also learned to put in protections for our investors. I mean, certainly for the accredited investors, but now for what I call the water crowdfunding, which is this new unaccredited investor round, which it looks like accredited high net worth investors are also they like it. And why do you like this particular new round?
You're talking the Series A?
Yes.
Or, well, first of all, it's a more immediate return. Okay, the dividends are paid monthly, and it's 10% instead of 8%. And it's not. Well, for me, it's not tying up quite as much money right now because I'm waiting on some things to sell, like a house, and so.
It'd be nice if the realtors were able to get out and about, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But so that it makes a lot of sense for me to do it, and then there's the option of converting to stock because I do believe that the share price is going to go up.
Well, patience, I think, will be rewarded. I guess you've been hearing about the Investor Water initiative, which is intended to short circuit the whole funding problem. What's your feeling about that?
I'm sorry, what's the question again?
Well, this thing called Investor Water that I've been talking about, which is this way of connecting investors with water projects.
Okay, yes. I think it's a great idea. I think, I think you've hit the nail on the head with coming up with money that's not, from the big capital companies. And I think you'll get a lot more and people will feel more connected to it. You've got your loyal cadre of investors that have hung in over the years, and I think
we are blessed. By the way, it's pretty amazing. I think we have the most loyal investors in the world, but it's a good thing that now the water price. See, we were always raising money for the company, but the water projects had this incredibly long, tortuous financing process, and here we are now. We've sort of connected the two, where investors can invest directly in water projects. And in fact, this afternoon, I'll be presenting a quick video of what happened in Phoenix when we launched the first pilot program. So that should be fun.
I'm anxious to hear that because I think it's a really cool idea. And I know I used to have a swimming pool, and that's a lot of water to throw away.
Not only that, I understand that when you do drain a pool, you run the risk of cracking it, right?
Yes. Yeah. You could. The biggest thing is if you leave it empty too long and the groundwater starts filling up, it will lift the pool.
Well, that happens almost right away in Florida because they have their water tables almost right at the surface, right? So that can happen very easily. But anyway, well, thank you for that. So what would your advice be to people who are listening to this program right now concerning Origin Clear?
Well, take it in small bites. That's the other beauty of the program is that $500, it's a good chunk of change, but it's not impossible. And put that in, and they've shown over the years that small, consistent savings produces a much better reward than trying to chuck away some when it's on occasion. because it seems like the occasions just never quite come up as much. But if somebody decided that they wanted to get serious, $500 a month, put away every month. I mean, okay, it's $50 for the first year, then it becomes 100, and then it's 600 for the year, and pretty soon that monthly check gets to be pretty good, and you can plow that monthly check back in to the next, after a couple months, you'll have a significant boost. So you wouldn't even have to come up with the whole 500, or you can add to it. So compounding.
Yeah, it's a kind of compounding. Well, reinvesting dividends is very cool too, and eventually we'll get that program done. We're about to move from right now the platform is a vanilla platform that we're using at Fund America. They're very good, but we're about to move to our own custom program, and then we can do all kinds of interesting things, potentially such as dividend reinvesting, et cetera. This should be a lot of fun. I mean, what the beauty of the Regulation A funding is, we no longer are like trying to find those elusive 1 in 1,000 people out there who qualify. And of course, everybody and his brothers marketing to them. Rather, everybody else who really didn't have access to these great offerings until these unaccredited programs came about. So I'm just tickled pink. I love the flow of it. It's great, and I love that you're involved with it, Bob. So thank you. Also, not only your financial involvement, but your advice and popping into my inbox with some information or thought is we like that and we appreciate it. So thank you. Carry on.
Well, yeah, I'm happy to do it. It's kind of fun. I don't mind surfing the web and seeing things that look out of sorts, and I'm especially enjoying it when people respond and say, "Oh yeah, we'll fix that," versus, "Eh."
Well, isn't it funny that I've noticed when I go look at e-commerce offerings where people are asking questions and then they're answered? That's, for me, it's huge. So I as a consumer, I feel the same way.
No, I think you guys are doing a great job. That's why I've hung in here since 2009. We're looking at 11 years.
Well, a heck of a lot of our stories. So thank you, and I'll be seeing you. About an hour and a half now?
Yeah.
And we'll have some fun with that. Feel free to pop in and chat, and you'll probably see yourself. If I can get this edited down real fast, you'll probably see yourself on the show.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing more information about the swimming pool project. I think that's cool.
Thank you, Bob. Well, you will see more, and I'll talk to you in a bit. Thank you so much. All right. So Bob was talking about a number of things, and I'm going to jump right into the last thing he discussed, which was this Arizona project. Here is the first cut of that. So this just came, in fact, my brother called it the teaser. So feel teased.
Do you not want to go up over walls?
When I brought this to Phoenix, the vast majority of pool guys called me an idiot, a fool, it'll never work. I'm just the kind of guy that's like, tell me I can't do something and I'm gonna figure out a way to make it happen. That was 3 years ago, almost 15 million gallons ago. It became apparent to me that there had to be a better alternative than just draining a pool. Anytime you drain a pool, you inherently put some things at risk. They're designed to be full of water, the surface to be wet. It becomes extremely problematic as the temperatures rise and summer sets in because of a natural occurring thing called expansion. When things get hot, they expand. There's no expansion joints in a pool. They create their own by cracking. And it may be just a hairline crack, but it's still a crack and your pool is going to leak and you're going to have issues. The potential for this is huge. Maricopa County here in Phoenix has, I think, 375,000-ish pools, and each purification unit can do 1 pool per day. And that's just Maricopa County. When you take it clear across the Sun Belt, there's millions and millions of pools.
So now I'm going to play one more video and then we're going to discuss more news. All right, here we go. This was recorded the other day and it is interesting also. Hi, this is Rick Zackelberry, and I want to talk to you very quickly about Investor Water. Investor Water, we think, is a breakthrough concept to solve a specific problem, which is how to get water projects done where there's a lack of capital. And guess what? Capital is a problem in this economy. It is what it is, which is kind of what accelerated us into finding this model, and we've tested it and it works. Number one is a way to get funding, because the number one way that water projects get slowed down is funding, right? Capital. So we figured out a way to get these things funded, and that's key. Number two is we're keeping the scale modest. These are solutions that are elegant, that are relatively inexpensive, that do a good job. And then the third piece of it, of course, is the projects themselves. These are packaged systems that roll out on a truck, drop in, plug them in, and you're set. And they can be taken away just as easily. So that creates a mobile rental fleet of water systems. It's the business model that works, we believe, and that's why we call ourselves the water company for the new economy. Thank you, and I'll be looking for you on my weekly briefing, 5 p.m. on Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, and just go to originclear.com/CEO to sign up. These two videos are the videos, some of the videos in production for the new Investor Water website. And so we have a concept of Investor Water, which brings together, obviously, investors with water projects. So let's take a look here at the announcement this week. So Origin Clear moved its headquarters to Texas, McKinney, Texas. And here you see the Facebook posting. On the top left, you have Mark Stevens, who's the president of Progressive Water Treatment, the company at bottom right that we purchased in McKinney, Texas back in 2015. In the middle of that top right left picture is Ken Berenger, the guy that you speak to when you want to get the real story. And then to his left, in the right of the picture, is Tom Marchicello, our president and COO, Chief Operating Officer. And this was a few months ago when we were touring. We're now located there. Now, physically, I'm not going to Texas, and a couple of us people are still left behind in Los Angeles. But we really realized a couple things. First of all, that we're mostly operating virtually in California anyway. Secondly, that the Texas market is an incredibly strong market for water treatment, and it's where it's actually at. California does happen, but it's no question that Texas and of course the Eastern Seaboard are very strong for us. So that's really our area, regional area of strength. It's where we actually build systems. It's not a glamorous, you can see in the bottom right, it's not a glamorous site. It's a working location. We just felt that it was more honest and appropriate for us to be based where we make these things. So I'm still in Los Angeles and operating from remote, as are a couple of other people, Bill Charneski, our Senior Vice President, Eric Sandler, our Controller, John Peraza, Director of Administration. Tom Marchicello, Chief Operating Officer, is already in Florida. Ken Berenger's in Pittsburgh. And then we have Dan Early and Rob Litos, the Modular Water people, are in Virginia. So we're pretty spread out. It's the truth that we're simply a very virtualized company, but this is our home. So that's the story there, because people are like, Riggs, you're moving to Texas. I'm like, yeah, that'd be a wonderful idea. I love Texas, but it's not going to happen. And I will keep you guys updated about my personal plans, but that's where it's at. Without further ado, I'm going to stop the share, cover a few more things here. What I wanted to do was to actually bring up this website that we're building and talk a little bit about Investor Water while touring the website, and that's going to be productive. So let me just pull up sitemap. This is just content, so don't, obviously there's no visuals. It's the web designers, a company called Studio 98, are putting this together. Investor Water, what's it about? Well, investors want to know, how can I get great yields in this new market? Now, with our water crowdfunding offering, you get great yields. You get 10% at a 0% market. But what if you wanted more for yourself? And that's where we get into Investor Water. Water users ask, how can I get funding for my must-do water project, right? Well, we have the answer, and here's how it works. First of all, why does the world need Investor Water? Well, it's a poorly kept secret that most of the water in the world is actually never treated and dumped. It's a horrible thing. We have $1 trillion global market that only grows 3 to 6% per year, which is slower than population. Meanwhile, and this is a new thing that relates to the economy, is that people are looking for work, and there's permanent unemployment being created right now. By the fourth quarter, when things have chilled out a bit on the virus front, we're going to have a lot of people who will be looking for work. If we can ramp up to many water projects, then we're good. Now, if you want to ramp up, you don't want to try and do it all yourself, right? That doesn't work. So the key is how can you create an environment, a marketplace where it happens? The problem is always money, right? We've always been waiting. I look at these forecasts, and there's millions, tens of millions of dollars in the forecast. This permit's happening, and that is happening, and this is going, there's always something happening. And these things are bumping along to completion and finally get closed, like that city deal that I showed you the other day. But in the meantime, your margin's being eaten up. And this is why I could never understand, because remember, I did not come from the water industry. I came from tech. And they kept saying, oh, the water industry has very low margins. I'm like, how could that be? Well, it's not the equipment is particularly low margin. It's that it's eaten up in overhead and consulting and permits and this and that. Even worse is that investors are very, very, very flighty, very concerned about security, as they should be, right? You should be looking for investments that give you returns, but that you have some recourse, you have some control. So what is that? So the solution is like this. Literally, we gave this to the website company today to work on. Our concept was short-term rentals. Because initially we're like, well, okay, what about if we allowed a water user to rent or lease equipment, and we put a lien on trust deed on their land, right? The problem is, guess what? Real estate is in a tough place right now, and there's going to be just waves of foreclosures and bankruptcies in the real estate space. So we want to stay well clear of that. And what we realize is, you know what? Even in the worst economic environment, rentals work. If you look at poor communities, the rent-a-center model, where you can rent a TV, always works, because people want a TV, but they don't have $400, but they have, $12 a week, whatever it is. And so the short-term rentals model always works, and it works very well in a recession environment. Now, to make that work, though, the water equipment has got to be portable, right? Because if you're going to rent it out and the renter stops paying, you better be able to take it back. And that's that concept of these things being able to roll in and out. This way, they can just sign on the dotted line. For the investors, rental profits are high, because it's short-term, right? It's just like Airbnb is short-term rentals. And you can make several times as much from renting out on a 2 or 3 day basis than by the month or the year. Of course, we own the asset and can take it back anytime. That's key. Now we're piloting in the field, and I'll talk a little bit about our first one. And we're expanding it into an industry marketplace, which we call Uberizing Water. I don't know if we can trademark that, but sounded good at the time. So water needs cleaning, America needs work, we connect the two. And then there's a mission statement, which is very clear, but it basically repeats what I just said. So the top video was the one that I just played to you. And this one gets into how it works. And it really gets into, the nitty-gritty. Well, let's just discuss it right here. First of all, technology. It would not be possible without the breakthrough that we had when we brought in Dan Early to create the division called Modular Water Systems, because he specializes in these. He's been doing it for 15 years. Long before people cared, he was doing it. And so we jumped on it back in 2018. It is now fully integrated into the entire company, and it's now a cornerstone of Investor Water. Investor Water could not work without these elegantly, relatively inexpensive, I'm talking in the $100,000 range, modular systems that can be put out and pulled back. I was talking to a proprietor the other day, and they said, well, okay, what do I have to do? Like, no, don't do anything. Just first, last, and security. Just like as if you're renting an apartment. You move in, you're not a murderer, you pass basic know your customer type checks. We don't even worry about your credit particularly, because we still own the product. Of course, the end user is paying a lot, but that's okay, because anytime they can have a buyout option. And we're now working on the financial model where every month that they rent is credited towards that buyout. So that'll all be worked out in the nitty gritty. We get a straight management fee. We get a percentage of everything no matter what. So everything is at cost for the investor plus our straight management fee. All right. Now, here's cool. How does the funding happen? What we learned was that investors have been investing in Origin Clear for a long time. People like Bob Bruce there. Let's say that Bob Bruce puts in $100,000. Now he receives 15% credit towards the participation in that. So a machine that might cost $100,000 for him to help build, which again is the raw cost of the machine plus our management fee, he'll only have to pay $85,000. And that is paid for by Origin Clear, essentially to incentivize Bob to invest. So Bob has all these good reasons to invest $100,000. He has full return of principal. He has this, that, and the other thing. This is on our accredited investor program. And he then gets this credit to participate. And we're getting investors who are very interested, ready to do deals. Okay. Origin Clear itself can invest. Now, that's where this pools thing came in. I'll tell you about that in a second. And finally, the SBA is looking for ways to lend money right now to restart the economy that is tied to assets and tied to employment, right? So you roll out these assets, small SBA funds them, and it gets employment. So it's a win-win from the government's point of view. And we've already put in a very large 7-figure request to the SBA on the 7A program based on this stuff. Now, who do we work for? Obviously, we work for you, the investor. Why? Because we'll go to Origin Clear and say, hey, can you build this? But if there's a better price somewhere else, Investor Water is an independent operation and is there to get the best deal possible. Why? Because we want to minimize the cost to get more investors in. Our job is to try and get investors in, not to make these things more expensive, right? That would work against our benefit. So we go to anywhere in the market and look for, the best price. And if Origin Clear is investing, it gets treated the same way as any other investor. It's an arm's length relationship. We work for you, obviously, the company with a water challenge, because we're going to make sure it works. If you don't like it, return it. If you can't pay for it, return it. No big deal. And then we're ready for the long-term financing when you are. And finally, we'll work for you, the water companies. This is interesting, right? Because we want to move beyond us looking for funding on projects into other water companies. The first thing we did was roll out the 2 Million Pools program. And there's going to be a separate website on that. In short, every once in a while, you're going to have to recycle the water in your pool. You can drain it, but then you got problems with potentially cracking it, hairline cracks, et cetera. In places like Florida, literally the pool can float up if it's empty. So you have to keep the pool full, but then every once in a while, the water just cannot be shocked. It has too much minerals. It's foul. Well, guess what? Run it through a desalination system, reverse osmosis, RO. And that's what that veteran pool operator, Mr. Barber, what he was doing was he was using the system you saw. It was taking the water through the trailer, running it through these membranes, and it's coming out just like that under sink water treatment unit that you have in your home, which you use for that little tap that gives the drinking water. Well, that's the water that enters your pool. So it's crystal clear water that's been replaced. Essentially just runs it, and then until that water is completely pure. What's great about that is you didn't have to get rid of the 15, 18, 20,000 gallons of water, which in hot states, that's a lot of water. Number two, you didn't run the danger of the cracking or the floating. It's no muss, no fuss. Now, for the pool cleaning company, it's an additional line of revenue. It's around $600, $700, $800 a day per job. I don't know the exact price, but it's in that range. So they get an extra line of revenue, but even more importantly, many owners do their own pool cleaning. And as they say, this gets the pool cleaner into the backyard, doing that job. And then, of course, you can talk about the cleaning service. This unit that you saw is called the Pool Preserver, like Life Preserver, but it's a pool preserver. Dwight Barber is in operation right now, and that is our machine. Now, what's interesting is we built the machine at Progressive Water Treatment a couple of years ago. Dwight bought it, and then we essentially made him a partner, took back the machine, and then he's operating through this program. Essentially, it's kind of a circular deal, but it's good because this now has our branding on it. We rebranded the whole trailer, and we now have our first system out there making money for Dwight, but also making money for us through the rental program. We funded it, we made it happen, and Dwight is very happy because he wanted to kind of start to slow down his business, his career. And so this allows him to consult and to be building the market for 2 million pools. So that's the first proof of concept of this. Now, what are some of the other pilot programs? Well, there's a problem with mobile home parks. I've spoken of that before, where these, what I call poop lagoons. Poop lagoons there's thousands of them in the South, mostly the South, and they are just not okay. And we put together a solution for this, which is, I'm not going to get into it because we're running out of time, but it's very inexpensive, very effective, and solves the problem. And now we're also driven up to manure lagoons in Dairy Country, we're working with partners on that, and that's very interesting. Future Marketplace, Alibaba for Water, where water companies can upload their own deals, outside investors can browse and participate, leasing companies can list themselves. And of course, we plan to oversee this marketplace for both technology, like make sure it works, and integrity, no fraudsters, et cetera. And also, we want to launch syndicates so that, let's say it's $1 million deal, then you can get a bunch of smaller investors in, or even in a $100,000 deal, get a bunch of $5,000 investors, right? So those are investor syndicates, and that'll be a lot of fun. Imagine a Zillow that unites investors with water projects. Pretty cool. There'll be a Zillow-like map, et cetera. And this talks about the concept, which is basically to address the impact of the coronavirus slowdown, to give investors yield while making more water clean, proving it with one investor per project, soon syndicates, Zillow for industrial water, et cetera. So that's the rough draft of the website. So hopefully that it got cleared up in terms of blurriness, and but you will see the website within days. I mean, it's being rapidly produced. So, that is kind of a quick look. Oh, yes, one big point. It's really interesting because I was talking to my wife this week and we were talking about this offering and she kind of liked it, right? So long story short, we invested in this unaccredited investor round. Generally, I have mostly loan money to the company, of course, with no interest to me. But this time I went ahead and invested. I'm really excited about doing that. Not a big investment, but it was more than the minimum. Let's put it that way. It was $1,000. That's what it was. Okay, let's answer a couple of questions. Is this technology for third world countries? Absolutely, Marquette, but one step at a time. Here's my plan. We have, for example, remember this animal farm technology? Well, we have a partner in Spain trying to sell these wonderful systems that I featured on our website in October that cleans these animal farms, et cetera. But guess what? They're $500,000. So what are you going to do, right? Again, long, slow sale, get a grant, this, that, and the other thing. Meanwhile, the animal farms are violating the law, especially in Europe with ammonia limitations. The ammonia gas is severely regulated in Europe. So what we've done here is put together a simple system that the animal farm owners can drop in their manure lagoon, that horrible pink lagoon, and it just starts taking care of itself through a kind of a coral reef type of self-cleaning process. That's going to be relatively inexpensive and in the rental program. So we'll start through our partners, Deputy Pork in Spain, Water DNP in Romania, Permionics in India, a couple of others. We have one that we're going to soon announce in the Middle East. And so we're going to work through our partners and roll this out. But frankly, we got so much going on in the US. So the important thing is, look, I like to say, and this may not be 100% accurate, but I heard it once. On the radio, therefore it's true, which is that the Airbnb founders started Airbnb with 2 apartments in downtown San Francisco that they ran themselves, right? And then they figured out the model and then they created the app. So as soon as possible, what we want to do is up to 3 pilots and we're done. And with those in hand and rolling, we want to create this app because that's how we scale it up. And now anybody in the world can just join. Isn't that exciting? So, that's what I think is super. So very excited about doing that. Personally, I think that the concept of having an app is what excites me so much as a tech guy, because I saw Uber and Airbnb and Zillow all happen, and they never owned the underlying asset. They weren't trying to do the work. The Uber guys weren't driving the cars, right? So it was really just a marketplace. Alibaba, eBay, marketplaces. So we're creating, I believe this is the first marketplace for water. Financially, I believe it has a potential to be a unicorn, right? I'm not going to say that we're going to be a $1 billion company tomorrow, but that kind of structure works because it's fully scalable. Now you're in tech. You're not making water systems anymore. I mean, we'll never stop, but you're actually helping the world make water systems and fund them. So that's, to me, amazing. I get kind of excited about it, as you can tell. So thank you, Keith. Pool thing is cool. Like the pictures of the manufacturing facility. Well, we'll circulate some more on Facebook. Be on Facebook. I wanted to answer Byron's question. The previous video had a pool company. You also have individual units for pool maintenance owners. That is a super cool concept, which is these little reverse osmosis systems that stay at the pool and just do it continually. It's a whole market. We're not ready for that because residential markets in general, you got to have a partner for it. It's a whole different world, but technically it can absolutely be done. We have a bunch of people interested in talking to us. You can always email invest@originclear.com. The number is 323 939-6645, 323-939-6645, extension 201 for Ken Berenger, and also extension 116 for Devin Angus. Please call Ken Berenger. He's extremely smart. Byron wants to know about pool maintenance. No, we're here to help others get pool systems, right? So we don't enter the actual businesses ourselves. And remember, we want to pull away. So we have next week, we have one more of these insider briefings. No, not fancy. And then we get into the first Thursday of the month, which is the 7th of May. That will be with the smart board and so forth. So I'll be rehearsing that. Okay. Radford Fulton wants to know, what is the cost of starting to put money in your stock? Start with $500. That's what Keith told us. And Keith said, take it easy. Just do a little bit at a time. You can always come back and do more. Guys, it's been a great pleasure. And I'm going to sign off now. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Stay safe and healthy, all. Don't be a stranger. You can always reach me through invest@originclear.com, and Devin will arrange to send it along, and even to for us to talk. Thank you again.